first day of fall, officially anyway, and we thank you for spending 10 minutes of it with CNN 10. My name is Carl Azus, and the first region we're going to this September 23rd is the Middle East. The nation of Iran says it had nothing to do with the recent attack on oil facilities in Saudi Arabia. But Saudi Arabia and the United States say Iran was behind it, and America is taking more steps to try to isolate the Middle Eastern country. The Trump administration announced new sanctions, penalties on Iran's economy last Friday. The goal? To cut off international money flowing into Iran. And the U.S. government says Iran is reacting in desperation to these moves by, quote, attacking its neighbors. The American military announced that it's sending more troops and missile defense equipment to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, two countries across the Persian Gulf from Iran. Iran's foreign minister says if any attacks are made in revenge for the Saudi oil strikes, they'll result in, quote, all-out war, though he also says Iran hopes to avoid conflict. There is a group that says it's responsible for the attacks on Saudi oil facilities. Houthi rebels who've been fighting for control of Yemen say the attacks were made because Saudi Arabia has been fighting the Houthis in defense of Yemen's government. But Saudi Arabia says the weapons used on the oil plants were Iranian-made and that they were likely launched from north of Saudi Arabia in the direction of Iran instead of from the southwest in the direction of Yemen. Tensions have been simmering in the Middle East since the U.S. government pulled out of a controversial nuclear deal with Iran last year. The recent attack on Saudi oil facilities has made things worse. It's been more than 3 weeks now since Hurricane Dorian hit the northern Bahamas. At that time, it was the most powerful classification of storm, a Category 5, and its destruction was worsened by the fact that it moved so slowly once it made landfall. It just sat there and blasted the islands. In one community alone, Marsh Harbor, more than 1 billion pounds of trash is lying around. Parts of homes, cars, boats, belongings. The country hasn't worked out how it's going to clean that up yet. And it's just part of the estimated $7 billion in damage that Hurricane Dorian caused in the Bahamas.
Plastic bag with clothes, towels, toiletries, and a few shirts. That's basically it. So I'm pretty much starting all over. So basically everything is gone.
Sean Russell is a physical education teacher from the east end of Grand Bahama, one of several Bahamian islands where Hurricane Dorian wreaked havoc, leaving over 50 dead, more than 1,000 missing, and countless homes wrecked.
This was sudden, and this was unexpected. After this, I really don't think the Bahamas will be the same. Oh my God!
Sean waited out the storm in his sister's house until rising waters forced them to leave.
Evening time, it really came down. It started to rise so fast. I said, you know what? Let's get out of here. We need to get to higher ground. Had I stayed in that house, I don't think I would have been able to make it through that. It's the top of the house. It's my room. And that's my sister's room. In my case, I'm starting from the bottom, which most persons are starting from the bottom. Some persons may still have their jobs. Where I worked at, our building was destroyed. I don't know if I have a job.
With nowhere to live and the school where he worked destroyed, Sean was able to book his passage off the island, where an uncertain future awaits upon his return.
I want to rebuild my home. However, I still would like to have a better life, regardless if it's in the Bahamas or wherever the Lord leads me. We're starting all over again because I lost everything. Basically, what I have here is an overnight bag with a few clothes that I took out when I left during the time of the storm, but everything is gone. However, I'm alive. That's all that matters. I'm alive. Not everyone could say that.
Ten-second trivia. Which of these U.S. landmarks was completed in 1884? Mount Rushmore, Washington Monument, Statue of Liberty, or Transcontinental Railroad? At the time it was completed in 1884, the Washington Monument was the tallest building in the world. At 555 feet and 5 inches tall, the Washington Monument was opened to the public a few years later. It's been closed multiple times since then, sometimes for restoration, sometimes for natural events like an earthquake that struck Virginia in 2011 that caused 150 cracks in the monument. And sometimes it's been closed because of its elevator. It broke down 24 times between 2014 and 2016. The monument was closed again at that time, while renovations, a new visitor center, and a brand new elevator were installed. And on the day after it reopened last Friday, the new, fully automated elevator broke. No one was in it at the time, but some visitors were stranded for an hour at the top stop on the monument. Workers don't know why the lift malfunctioned, but they did get it moving, and when it does that, it's pretty fast. Takes just over a minute to ferry visitors up 500 feet. The original elevator was powered by steam, and that ride took more than 10 minutes. We reported last week that smartphone sales around the world were shrinking as people keep their current devices longer or buy older models. But the use of smartphones is on the rise. More people are spending more time on them and possibly getting addicted to them. In South Korea, an estimated 95% of the population owns a smartphone. That's the highest percentage of any country in the world. And the South Korean government, which has promoted technology, is also offering camps to help young people unplug from it.
It was 4 o'clock in the morning when Yoo Chae-rin realised she'd been on her phone for 13 hours. This was when the 16-year-old decided she needed help. Yoo went to a summer camp with a difference. This one is for smartphone addicts. One of 16 government-sponsored camps across South Korea, these girls spend 12 days with no access to their phones.
At first, I started using it simply because I was bored, but now I just use it for no reason.
These teenagers attend one-on-one, group and family counselling sessions and take part in alternative activities that can replace the obsession with their smartphones. There are also programs to educate the parents.
On the first day of the camp, kids have agonized looks on their faces. They say things like, "I want to go back home. I really hate it. Why am I here?" But that's just for the first 2 days.
In 2018, 98% of adolescents in South Korea used a smartphone. Almost 30% of them are over-dependent on them, according to government figures.
These teenagers get obsessed with games and refuse to go to school, and cyberbullying and arguments with parents have become more serious.
Yu's father became increasingly worried about her and enforced a time limit of 2 hours a day on her phone.
I did not know what she was watching, whether she was watching YouTube or playing games. If I talked to her about it, there would be an argument.
There are increasing concerns about the medical impact of excessive smartphone usage. One psychiatrist says it can weaken the frontal lobe of the brain.
Major symptoms of the weakening of the frontal lobe are depression and anxiety, and it becomes harder to control impulses or anger. The ability to suppress or overcome difficulties becomes weak.
1 month after the camp ended, Yu says she believes it helped her.
It'll be a lie if I said I don't use my smartphone, but it's true that the duration and the number of times I use it have decreased.
Paula Hancock's CNN Seoul.
For 10 out of 10 today, if you think the best place for yellowfin tuna is on a sushi roll, some engineers at the University of Virginia disagree. They built this. They're calling it a tuna bot because it's vaguely shaped like the fish, but with no fins except for the tail, and it can swim about 3 feet per second. But why? Researchers want to study the physics of how fish swim, and their work could be used to help develop new underwater vehicles. They could have called it GoFish. It's surely not a glowfish. It's a souped-up, tuned-up, mechanized robofish. Wicked Tuna in Disguise is a site for sore sock eyes. Iberacuda lenda golden perch to more in-depth grouper research, bullheaded in its purpose to go trout beneath the surface. Holy mackerel to its albacore, it trumpeters terrific. A bonito bream of research from Atlantic to Pacific. It makes fish story, his story, reeling in our show. I'm Carl Azus, casting lines, and it's time for us to go.